Welcome back. So my IDE always tries to help me, and here notice there's a small thing right here. It complains that I could change this to a var. So let's just do that. It doesn't matter. It knows it's a product, so I don't have to put product here as well. I can just use var keyword instead. So let's just do that. Now the second thing I want to do this lesson is just make a new fact. I want to create my first actual fact right here to create my first property. So what we can do is we can make, again on the product, we can say set ID stores ID, something like that, just to explain that it'll save the ID in my ID property right here. And what I can do is very simple. I'll just, again, make a new product right here like this, and I'll just try to set the ID for that product. So product.id. Now notice there's no ID yet, and I'll just set that to, and let's just put it to 1 right here to kind of have an ID. Now it doesn't work because there's no ID on the product, so we'll have to go and create that in order to even compile our code. So Alt-Enter, I'll create the property, and boom, let's go to the ID, and let's see what happened. If we go to the product, you'll notice a new property just popped up. Again, test-driven, right? I didn't do anything, I just wrote that I needed this, and then I asked the system to create it for me. Now the last thing I need to do is just assert that equals, that this guy will actually equal to that ID. So now 1 should equal the product's ID right here. Then we know the get will also work. So let's just try and run this unit test with the others. There we go. So let's try and see. Now we have 2 unit tests and they're both successful. So that was how easy it was to actually add a second unit test that tests that we now have an ID. We can do a new test now. We can say update ID stores new ID, right? So it's really up to you how you want to kind of do this, but let's try and do this. So we'll do it like this. We'll say assert equals 1, and if we set it to 2 afterwards, then we can assert equal again, and we can ask if it's 2. And now we should always only have 1 assert equal per test. So let's try again to add this unit test as well. And notice you can just keep going now on how many different areas you want to kind of do your testing. I don't need to go any further right now because the getters and setters, they will always work in the current setup. So let's just end this part right here, and we can make just one more fact just for the fun of it. I'll just make one more fact, and that one is going to be for the name. So I'll say public void, and I'll add the product set name right here, and that should actually store name as string, something like this. The naming right here is maybe not perfect, but we'll look into that as we move forward. This is just to get you started with actually doing testing right here. So let's just add this guy again. Notice I'm creating a product every single time. So we're going to change that in a second. Let's put in, notice there's no name yet, so we'll just add the name, and let's just call it Lego brick like this. There we go. Now we have the Lego brick, and what I want to do is just again assert equal, and I want to make sure that the Lego brick kind of equals this term right here. There we go, and let's just do product.name down here to assert the equal. Now again, notice the name doesn't exist, so let's just go and create that name. It creates a property, and boom, we're gone. The code was just created for me. Let's go back and run the test, and that pretty much means that we are done with these unit tests for now, because now we have 4 running tests that kind of shows that we have these 2 properties. So our model is now created and done. That was a good start. One thing I noticed is that again and again and again, I'm actually using this new product. So we can actually go and make a public product test right here, just make a constructor, and there we can just make a local product right here, like this, and that product we can just make that once and for all right here. So we'll say underscore product equals new product, and then we can reuse it throughout the code to kind of do a bit of, we're just saving a little bit of space by doing this for each of the different tests. Right here, you'll notice that I'm just saving a little bit of space so I don't have to do the new keyword again and again and again. And there we go. And let's just do it for the final one. There we go. And let's rerun all tests just to see that I didn't break anything. And now we just refactor our test a little bit more to make it even simpler to read our actual code. And these helpers will use those during our process as well. Even now, there's one more thing. We could even make it read only if we wanted to and just rerun our test just to see that things are still running. And there we go. We have a full running system, and we just created our first product model right here using test-driven development.